Welcome, mamas. This is one of my favorite prenatal sequences for the lower back. I am currently about 30 weeks into my third pregnancy, and this time around I've been experiencing quite a bit of sacrum pain. So I've been trying to do this practice or some variation of these postures about once a week to alleviate that discomfort. And I hope it provides some relief for you as well, especially towards the end of our pregnancy as things are growing and changing so quickly. It's not uncommon to feel a sense of weight or pressure in the pelvis or experience hip, low back, sacrum, SI pain. And what we can do to help relieve that is find a strong sense of alignment through the legs. Just like a tree, we have these energetic roots from our hips through our legs to our feet that connect us with the earth. And when those are in nice alignment, it provides a nice structure for the rest of the spine to land upon. So many of the postures that we'll be doing today will be leg focused. And yeah, I hope you enjoy. So we will need 2 blocks for this practice, as well as a bolster. If you don't have a bolster, you can use some pillows or a folded blanket. And if you don't have blocks, you can use water bottles or books or anything that is similar to the shape of a block. So we're going to start in hero's pose. I'm sitting up on 2 blocks. I like to feel quite elevated through my hips, which then gives some space for the lower back. And when we sit in hero's pose versus a traditional, more cross-legged seat, it internally rotates the thighs, which then broadens the lower back. So it can be a really nice way to land as we begin. Once you find your seat, please float your eyes closed. And I'd like you to bring your attention to your lower back, specifically the kidneys and the small of the lower back. And imagine you could breathe into your kidneys, filling up your lower back with your breath. In traditional Chinese medicine, our life essence is stored here in our kidneys. And I'd like you to envision breathing into your kidneys as you inhale and sending the breath from the kidneys down the legs, towards the feet, and into the earth. And as you exhale, imagine you can draw energy from the earth up through the feet, the legs, the pelvis, and back into the kidneys. So you inhale kidneys down through the legs, the feet, the earth. And exhale, drawing all of that vitality and strength from the earth back into your body. We'll take 3 more breaths like that. Tapping into this reciprocity between your body and Pachamama, Mother Earth, knowing that she is here to guide and support you along your journey. Beautiful. We'll blink the eyes open. Go ahead and lean forward enough that you can remove your blocks from behind you and find a seat, and we'll come into Baddha Konasana. So soles of the feet together, knees nice and wide. If you'd like to sit up on your bolster or your blanket to elevate your hips, you're more than welcome to here. We're going to take a hold of the ankles. You can take a little bit more of a wider stance than you might usually. And sitting up nice and tall. If it feels good to close the eyes here again, you can. This time we'll take a few breaths, drawing the soles of the feet together. And as you inhale, I'd like you to think of expanding through your ribs. So imagine your torso were like the branches of the tree. And as you inhale, the branches of the ribs widen out to the sides. And as you exhale, the branches ever so slightly soften towards your trunk. The breath like the wind and the body like a tree. You inhale, filling up the lungs, expand through the sides of the body. And as you exhale, the ribs relax and the spine remains tall. Good, we'll take one more inhale there. And this time, exhale, fold forward as much as you comfortably can. I know as the belly gets a little bit bigger, you may not have as much room. I like to bring my hands forward of my feet. Keep drawing the soles of the feet together. As you scoop the spine forward, we'll take an inhale here, once again filling up the side body. And exhale, relax the ribs, keeping the spine nice and long. Next inhale, let's rise up and reach for one of your blocks. We're going to bring the block thin ways between the soles of the feet. So just taking a little bit wider of a stance in the legs. Again, sitting up nice and tall, you want to find a little bit of a tilt forward in your pelvis so that pubic bone is moving slightly forward and down. And the tail and the sacrum is almost like arching backwards. Hands to the ankles again, sitting up nice and tall. This time I want you to think of breathing through the front and the back of the body evenly. So as you inhale, fill up the front body, relaxing through the shoulders. The back of the body fills up. And as you exhale, just imagine everything softening towards your midline. Good, inhale, 3 breaths like that, filling up backs and sides, as well as the front. And exhale to relax. And even bring your attention down into your pelvis. So as you inhale, think of giving both the front and the back of your pelvis equal breath. And as you exhale, you can find just a gentle lift of your pelvic floor your lower abdomen as the shoulder blades soften down the back. Take one more in-breath here. And as you exhale, we will fold forward once again. Again, it doesn't have to be very far. Keeping your length in the spine. And same thing here, breathing in through the front and the back of your body. The front and the back of your pelvis. One more full cycle of breath. Pressing the feet into the block. Using an inhale to rise up. So we'll take the feet wide into Upavishta Konasana. It doesn't have to be your full expression of the posture. I like to do about 70 to 80% of my full stretch. I also like to have my blocks handy for this one. Again, once we are growing more full in our belly, it may not be that comfortable to fold forward as deeply. So flex through the feet, press down through the legs. Again, imagine rooting the legs down towards the earth. Take an inhale, sit up nice and tall. And then as you exhale, let's fold forward. I'm gonna come up onto the blocks. You can go as far or stay as high as feels comfortable. It's nice to use the blocks to rest upon here. And now bringing your awareness through the front, the back, and the sides of your torso. So the legs stay nice and strong. Think of reaching out from your hips through your heels and rooting down from your heels through the backs of the legs, even into the sit bones, as the spine stays nice and elevated, strong and long. Even finding some length through the back of the neck, so maybe gently tucking the chin ever so slightly and lengthening from the back of the neck out through the crown of the head. We'll take just a few more breaths here. If you're feeling a little bit more open and it feels okay to go a little bit lower if you're on a higher variation of your blocks for the next few breaths, take the time to do that. Inhale to rise up. And if you need to use your hands on the back of your legs for support, we're going to bend the knees and find our way into tabletop position. So once you come into tabletop, take a few cat-cows here. Inhale, arching through the spine, relaxing the belly towards the earth. And exhale, pressing down through the hands and the legs and rounding the back towards the sky. Take a few cycles of breath like that. Now feeling a sense of movement and fluidity through the sacrum. Inhale to find neutral spine. Extend your right leg all the way back and stretch out through your heel. Starting to engage the muscles of the legs. So think of hugging your muscles towards the bone. The inner thigh of the right leg can spiral up towards the sky. And then lengthen your right seat towards your heel as you press the heel back. Staying nice and long through the spine, the back of the neck, gazing slightly forward of the fingers. And then release the right knee. Same thing, other side, extending your left leg. Hugging the muscles to the bones, spiraling the inner thigh skyward. And then the left seat, even from your left kidney, you can reach down the back of your legs, press through the heel, and breathing here. Good, go ahead and release the left knee. And then curl your toes, lift your knees, lift your hips, and press back for a downward facing dog. If you're a little bit further along in your pregnancy, it might feel nice to take a wider stance in your feet, creating space for the baby in the belly. Feel free to find some movement here. I feel like it's quite nice to take figure eights through the pelvis, bending one knee at a time, pedaling out in a fluid movement. You can also bend one knee at a time, or if it feels better to find stillness, that is just as nice. Wherever you are, coming back through neutral dog. Inhale to look forward, and we'll step the right foot all the way between the hands. If you need to, you can go wherever you can and then scoot your front leg forward or your back leg back to find the position. Your back knee is going to come down. Bring your right hand to the inside of your legs and walk the right foot out so you have a wider stance here. And I like to use the blocks for this, especially as you may not have quite as much room to fold. But if you're quite flexy and you don't need the blocks and you can go all the way down to your forearms, you're totally welcome to do that as well. So we'll take a few breaths here. Hands on the blocks. I'm on the highest height of the blocks. And allowing the pelvis to sink. Keeping the legs strong, so I still have my back toes curled under. So there's a sweet alignment through the back of the leg and the hip. You can either stay here if this is enough for you. If you'd like to come down lower on your blocks, or you have the space and the flexibility to come down into more of a full lizard on the forearms, then that is available as well. We'll be here for about 3 to 5 breaths. Keeping the front foot firmly rooted. And if you're lowered, let's come up. I'm going to come all the way back up onto the highest height of my blocks. And before we come out of this fully, you're going to lean your hips back just a little bit. And then I'm going to take circles with the hips. So they don't have to be big, but just finding a little bit of movement. Sometimes I feel like my back gets achy because I've been a bit stagnant, or there just hasn't been enough movement through the pelvis and the sacrum to accommodate the growth and the change that's happening. So finding a sense of rooted stability while also remaining buoyant and flexible, making sure you move in both directions. And release your blocks. Lift the back knee, and we'll find downward facing dog. Again, here, if it feels nice to pedal out through the feet, or create a little bit of figure 8 motion through the hips. You can take that before we settle into the second side. And then when you're ready, looking forward, stepping the left foot forward as much as you can, and then either curling the front toes forward or reaching back through the back leg, bringing the bottom knee or the back knee down. And your hands come to the inside of the front leg. Walk your left foot out. Take a hold of your blocks. Let's start on the highest variation. The back toes stay curled. You want to think of keeping your hip, your knee, and your ankle in alignment. And start to feel the pelvis sink down towards the ground, lengthening the spine out of the hips. Breathing deeply into the low back and kidney area. And then either staying here, lowering your blocks, or again, if you have the space, you're welcome to come all the way to the mat, maybe onto your forearms. Keeping the legs engaged, so you can even think of hugging in your inner thighs towards your midline, as the thighs also reach long out of the hip joints, and the feet draw firmly towards the ground. One more cycle of breath. And then slowly coming up, I'm going to come back up onto the highest blocks. And then reach your hips back just a little bit and start to make gentle circles here in the hips. Making sure you move in both directions. And while I didn't use this position in my other births, if you're planning to have a birth in which you can move freely, many women like to birth in this lunge position. It can create a nice opening for the baby and also relieve low back pain during labor. So it's nice to keep these muscles nice and warm and flexible throughout your pregnancy. So if you want to lean on this during labor and delivery, your body remembers. Good, releasing the blocks. And let's step the back foot forward now, lifting the back knee all the way to the front of your mat. So again, if you need to accommodate your belly by taking a wider stance here, please do. I also like to use my blocks here, either on the middle or the highest height. Inhale, lengthen the spine halfway. And we're going to take a couple breaths here in Ardha Uttanasana. So looking down at your feet, you can even rock forward and back a few times between ball of the feet and heels. And eventually finding a sense of middle ground. Equal distribution of weight between all four corners of your feet. And even finding a gentle lift through the arch of the foot on both sides. And imagine that arch line hugging through the inner seam of the legs all the way up through your inner groin. And then imagine the outer hips and thighs reaching back. And the tailbone lengthening back, but also drawing down towards your heels, starting to open up a little bit more through the hamstrings, which can also get a bit tight as a lot of our weight shifts with our growing bellies. And so even just stretching and opening up through the hamstrings can be a nice way to relieve the lower back tension. You can even find a little bit of movement here once you find that rootedness in the legs. Could take one more inhale. And then widen the feet a little bit more. Toes will move out to the sides. And we'll bend the knees and come into Malasana, yogi squat. So the only counter or contradiction to this posture is if you know that you have full placenta previa. If so, you can stay in Ardha Uttanasana. I like to sway into it to start. You can also roll a blanket or your mat if your heels don't quite reach the ground and you want a little bit more support. You could even take a block, if that felt good, and sit on the block in your Malasana. We'll just take a couple breaths here, sinking the pelvis down. Again, feeling nice and rooted through the lower body. Really connecting your physical body to the earth. You can take prayer hands if that feels good. Again, lengthening the spine, heart is elevating, shoulders are broadening. And even think of the lower back widening, the pelvis softening as the crown of the head blossoms skyward through every breath, every posture, becoming a clear channel to receive from the divine. Good, take one more in-breath. And then as you exhale, hands to your blocks, straighten through your legs, walk the feet back in. And then bring your hands to your lower back, elbows up to the sky, slight bend through your knees. And nice strong legs, press down through the feet and inhale to rise up. We'll take a brief mountain pose here. Hands to the sides, palms facing forward. And again, just feel a sense of centeredness through the feet. The sits bones drawing down towards the heels. The arches of the feet drawing energy from ground into body. And from here, we're going to take warrior one. So bringing the hands to the hips. And let's start with the right foot forward. Bring your left leg back. So same idea here. You might need to take a wider stance than what you typically do. And you might not go quite as deep into your warrior one either. So feel into what's appropriate for you today. Bending through the front knee, the back heel spins to the ground. The right hip draws back and the left hip draws forward. You can keep your hands to your hips if that feels good. If you'd like to take the arms all the way up, you can. You can also interlace the fingers. Bring the hands behind the head. The elbows draw in and slightly up towards the sky. And draw your tail down towards your back heel as you reach your front thigh forward. We'll take 3 full cycles of breath here. Just like we did in the beginning, really fill up your kidneys and your lower back with your breath. If your hands are not already to your sides, let's bring the hands back to your hips and step your back foot forward to meet your front. Good, left foot stays forward. Your right leg can reach back, warrior one. Finding a stance that feels nice and balanced and supported for your body. Bend through your front knee. And rather than kind of cramming up through your lower back, again, you want to think of lengthening. So your tail reaches down towards your back heel. You can even bring your hands to your belly if that feels good, or taking the same arm variation that you did on the opposite side. Again, we'll settle in for about 3 breaths. Every inhale, fill up your lower back with your breath. Every exhale, sink your front thigh forward and reach the back pinky toe edge of the foot towards the mat. Even hugging your inner back thigh up into the sky. And take one more round of breath. Releasing your hands if they're up to your hips, straighten your front leg. Then we're going to turn the feet forward. So you're facing the long end of your mat in a nice wide-legged stance. I'm going to reach for my blocks. And we're going to bring them forward. So we'll start in almost like a downward dog position in our upper body. So your feet are nice and wide. You can take your blocks on any height that feels good. I might even go onto the lowest. And then walk your hands forward and melt the head and the heart forward. Reaching your seat, your thighs back. And just allowing the belly to relax. And just like every other posture, the legs are strong, providing a solid foundation for the expansion that's happening in the rest of your body. And then inhale to rise. Walk your hands back so that they're underneath your shoulders. If you need to adjust your stance at all, you can. And then we'll bring one block to the center. You can lengthen it so it's a bit higher. Let's bring the left hand to the block. You can bring your right hand to your right hip. And then inhale, lengthen through the spine, and exhale, start to rotate your belly to the right. You can let your hips move with you, either keeping your right hand on your hips, or if it feels nice, you can lengthen the arm to the sky. And you can also take more of a bind, reaching the right arm around your low back. Maybe you're grabbing a hold of the inner left thigh. Take one more in-breath. And then exhale to unwind. Bring your right hand to the block, your left hand to your left hip. Inhale to lengthen. And exhale, turn to the left. Again, you can let your pelvis move with you. And then taking the same arm variation with your left arm that you did on the opposite side. Inhaling here. And exhale to unwind. And then bring hands to both blocks once again. Walk them slightly forward. And then we're going to bend the right knee. So you may have to adjust your stance as you do that. Bend the right knee, straighten the left leg, and come into Skandasana. The left heel comes to the ground, the toes are up. And getting a nice stretch through the inner thighs, the inner hamstring. And then using your blocks for support, you're going to inhale up through center. And exhale to the other side. Left knee bends. Toes of the right foot come up. And then inhale, rise. Let's bring our hands to our hips. Press down and through the feet and the legs and come all the way up. Good, so heel toe your feet together. And we'll face forward once again at the front of your mat. Have your blocks handy. I have one more standing posture. We're going to take Parsvottanasana. So let's start with the right foot forward. Hands can come to your hips. Left foot comes about 3.5 feet or so back. Roughly heel to heel alignment, slightly wider. And let's inhale, lengthen through the spine. And exhale, start to fold forward. Again, I like to use my blocks here. You can take your blocks on either side of the front foot if that feels good. I find as I get a little bit further along in the pregnancy, it's nice to have both hands on the inner leg. But do what feels best for you. And then the crease of your right hip draws back as your left hip draws forward. And then folding as much as you comfortably can. Maybe releasing the head. And slowly coming up as you inhale. Step the left foot forward. And switching sides. So reaching the right leg back. Finding a stance that's suitable for you. Walking the hands back underneath the shoulders. Inhale to lengthen. Draw the left crease of the hip back and the right forward. And once you feel nice and grounded in your stance, feel free to exhale and fold in. And even though we're starting to wind down here, maintain a sense of strength, stability, alignment, and rootedness through your legs. An inhale, rising up. Stepping your back foot forward and making your way into downward facing dog. We'll take a breath or two in downward facing dog. And when you're ready, bring your knees down. And we're going to take puppy pose here. So your hips are going to stay over your knees. You can come onto your forearms. Again, hips stay high. You can walk your arms forward. And start to melt your head and your heart towards your mat. Maybe resting your head to the floor. Deepening the breath. And once again, allowing yourself to lean into the support of the ground beneath you. Slowly inhale, rising up. And you can make your way onto your right side. If you have a block or a bolster, let's have that handy. So resting on the right side to start. You can use your right arm as a pillow for support. Stacking the legs. And then draw your left knee up and in. Take a hold of your big toes with your peace fingers. And you can either stay here if this is good for you, or you can start to extend your left leg up towards the sky. We'll take just a few breaths here. Good, one more inhale. And exhale to release the left leg. Pause here for just a moment. And then very gently, in any way that feels good for you, you're going to make your way onto your left side. Using the left arm to support your head, stacking the legs. And then hugging the left knee in. Peace fingers reach for the big toe. Either staying here or straightening through your right leg and reaching the foot towards the sky. This was one of my favorite ones to do during my second pregnancy. It's also a nice way to increase circulation through the legs, elevating the feet. Can provide a nice relief if you're experiencing any stagnation or swelling in the lower body. One more in breath. And then bending the knee, releasing the leg. And if you have your bolster, your pillow, or your blanket, we'll reach for that now. You're going to bring that between your legs. So ideally you want your knees, but also your ankles supported. And this will again provide some broadening and spaciousness through the lower back. I'm personally sleeping like this quite a bit these days. And it's especially helpful to have the ankle supported. You could even put a second pillow underneath the ankle so that the knees are slightly in and the ankles are wider. And that will give you even more spaciousness and opening through the lower back and the pelvic outlet. And we will rest here for Shavasana. Taking a deep inhale through the nose and exhale, sighing it out through the mouth. Do one more like that. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, sighing it out. And just imagine laying anything to rest that is bringing any sense of instability or lack of stabilization. And allowing it to be a prayer to the earth. And as your body rests on the ground, just imagine receiving all of the innate intelligence, like the mycelium communicating underneath the earth, knowing that you are receiving all that you need to. And there is so much communication and divine intelligence moving through your body to nourish and support the growth of both you and your baby. And if you have the time and the space to stay here I encourage you to take that and enjoy for as long as you can or as long as you need. Otherwise, feel free to slowly return back into the space and ease your way out of Shavasana. Thank you so much for sharing your practice with me. May it provide relief and a sense of rootedness. Namaste.